This is April 11th, 2026. And if our count is right, it's 2078 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there um, on Fort Bliss, taken downstairs to the soundproof room of the arms room to take his life. They took his life and they then um, it look evidence indicates and really strongly indicates, and they monetized his remains. They stole his body off of Fort Bliss. Well, it might have went to the CID, right? The CID, because the CID, Tavita Nusa, was involved in all of this. And we have a CID um, autopsy report. So that they never gave us. We had oh gosh, there's so much fraud, y'all, because Tavita Nusa's brother, Solomon Nusa, was major in the U.S. Army mortuary operations. And of course, um, everybody was so upset when all this happened, shaking in their boots that we even cared about our son. I mean, they were shaking in their boots, because we wanted to know what happened, and then it turned very violent for them. Death threats and harassment and um, bullying, and you name it. They came after us to try to shut us down, to put Richard's case, his murder case, in a cold case. And there was a group, and this group, of course, was part of Hart's group, Hart family. James Hart, being in the VA IDS Pueblo, with direct access to the database, to veterans benefits. We know that veterans benefits at that time and even now were being investigated, looked into, because of the wide fraud, millions and millions and millions of dollars. It probably went into the billions. Uh, but I'm only talking about the El Paso office, okay? The Fort Bliss office, the Fort Bliss VA office. Um, so the Harts are cousins with the Nusas, okay? So they're cousins through Leilani Hart, Tavita Nusa in the CID, and his brother Solomon Nusa in mortuary operations. And Leilani Hart had a very close relationship with the DES, the Director of Emergency Services, Thomas Kane. So Richard's body was stolen off of Fort Bliss because this was an insider's job, and there was protection given because of this insider's job. And the protection you would think would come from the CID or from the command or from um, the JAG or IG or AG or um, but the protection came from the politics. Okay, the protection came from the billionaire narco philanthropists with their hand um, on all the It's always been about politics, hasn't it? Because this has been about election tampering with deadly force. That's what this has always been about. And of course, the Walmart mass shooting, election tampering with deadly force, and the attempts on President Trump's life, election tampering with deadly force. All of the legal and everything to all the everything that he has been through and what we have been through. Um, it has been because of election tampering and because they want to keep control of the agencies, right? They want to keep the agencies corrupt, and we all know that the agencies are corrupt. Otherwise, we would have accountability, and everybody's always asking about accountability. Where's the accountability? And we know that there's mutiny. We know that there's corruption. We know there's corruption within the Republican Party. We know the Democrat Party's totally. I mean, it's gone. It's just gone. It's just totally corrupt and compromised. And then the Republican Party is, you know, it has mutineers in there, and you see that, and you have podcasters that they have connections that uh, to bring down this, the new world order, what Bush brought in, and I would say others brought in. Um, this cartel activity, this organized criminal activity within our government system, in alliance with the cartel, an alliance that made billionaires really what they are, really wealthy. And, but it was all with politics, with government contracts and policies and everything that would enhance their monopolies on our system, and make them very, very wealthy and powerful. And so anyone that interrupted the politics, like President Trump, who came down the escalator and said, I'm going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it, that was an absolute assault on the organized crime that was in alliance with the cartels that were trafficking across that border, making billions and billions of dollars um, with everything that they were trafficking. I mean, they were trafficking, of course, the drugs, and of course, the fuel, and of course, the sex trafficking, and the children, and you name it, weapons, and it was a load of money, loads and loads of money. And so it's always been about politics. And so I wanted to talk about Julio Cordero, because Julio Cordero's case, those that covered that up, we have open records. Clearly, he was targeted. The just hours before, he told the police that he was being uh, surveillanced, surveilled. He was being surveilled. He was being wired, um, just hours before, and we know that he had went to the AG of the federal prosecutor's office, the AUSA, Miss Knopf, because he had to at large um, philanthropists, narco philanthropists, that from his initial Poison Ponds case, where he had over 40 corrupt officials arrested, but there was two at large that was still on his list, of these philanthropists, these narco philanthropists, and I would say there's more than two, but he said two on his list. Um, and he made a call to Miss Knopf, and soon after that, seems like he was being surveilled, and then he ended up not alive, being shot to death there at Franklin High School. And there's a story. I don't know if you believe the story. I don't believe the story, and I have the open records, and clearly the story is so off. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. The glove doesn't fit. The stories don't fit. Nothing fits. The people are very shady. All of them are very shady. And one of those that are very shady is Gonzalez, um, Michael P. Gonzalez, who was running to be sheriff. Oh my gosh. I mean, God help us, because he's really up to no good. and don't let the smile fool you. And that was the title of a post I just put up. Do not let the smile fool you, and do not let him fool you with his impersonation of like a godly man or something. He tried to do that with us, and he is he's with Amber Chase, y'all. And if you've been keeping up with this, also let me tell you that Michael P. Gonzalez, I don't know if he is right now, but the last time I looked, he was the president of the Fraternal Order of Police. So that gives him access, right? That gives him influence. And to be with Amber Chase, I mean, the lowest of the low, the most vile and vulgar, the bottom of the barrel. I mean, scum, absolute dirty scum. I mean, can scum be dirty? Can scum be dirty? Because, I don't know how to describe this vile and vulgar scum. And for him to, and she was, of course, she's connected to the Hart family, right? She's connected to the Hart family, which explains things, right? But we didn't know who she was, and she was absolutely part of a campaign to bully us, um, to really harass us and even threaten us. I just can't even tell you to what degree it was so bad for months, y'all, day in and day out, to keep us, to shut us up, to really stop us from investigating and wanting to know where our son's remains are, right? And to keep our son's case out of cold case, right? Because once it's in cold case, and the officials they were just chomping at the bit to put Richard's case in cold case, because of course it unravels the entire cartel philanthropy, narco philanthropist protection racket there. And what do I mean by protection racket? Well, if you're in the politics, and Alejandra de la Vega, the Hunts, and especially Alejandra de la Vega Foster, she's in the politics, y'all, with her sister Miriam Guadalupe. They're in the politics, not just on the Texas side, not just on the US side, but in Mexico also. Absolutely in the politics, absolutely sitting on commissions, security commissions, absolutely involved with the likes of Marine General John Kelly. And of course, very, very close for years to Governor Abbott, which makes Governor Abbott very dirty, okay? Makes Governor Abbott very dirty. So, this is what I'm saying, that there are some Republicans that are very dirty. And I don't know if what kind of art of the deal that President Trump has had to make, and how he feels about Governor Abbott. But Governor Abbott was absolutely complicit with all the attacks on President Trump, and I'm sure President Trump knows that, because El Paso was the epicenter for really all the. I would say for the attacks on President Trump, it was the epicenter. Um, of course, Texas, right? And when you have access to databases and people and power on both sides of the border, it makes you, um, you know, this is a powerful group. And when you place them with the CJNG, which they are in alliance with the cartels, including the Sinaloa, including the Juarez cartel, including very close to the CJNG cartel, which are the ones that were really stealing a lot of fuel, but they're also the flesh peddlers, the human flesh eaters, the most violent ones. They were the ones that owned the hotels, that were committing fraud with older people in the United States with timeshares. Of course, they're in alliance with Iran and getting drones from Iran. Iran was providing drones for them. Of course, there were visas given to Iran, and Iran was the gateway for China. So the Chinese and the Iranians were coming up through Central America to into Mexico to the borderland and coming across to the United States. And when you have a when they are vital to fuel, which of course West Star Refinery, right? West Star Refinery and West Star Bank. Very important that's the Foster, that's Paul Foster, that's Alejandro de la Vega's husband. When you're very close to the fuel industry, like Rafael Arellano Curon, um, with um, his oil and gas business. This is, of course, they have restaurants. Of course, they have the Plenitude Crematorium, the body, the flesh peddling. Of course, they are um, in alliance with Beto O'Rourke, who is um, right there with Jeffrey Epstein, his family ranch, right beside Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch, of course, employing the family of La Diabla, um, Martha Mendez Aguilar. Uh, so all of this is connected to the organ harvesting. La Diabla was the organ harvesting, the baby harvesting, um, selling babies on the black market to the LGBTQ, whatever, the homosexual community in the United States. Um, this is, all connected to women's shelters, orphanages, uh, of course, uh, Marine General John Kelly with unaccompanied minors. Um, like the emergency intake center, the shelters, contracts for those, um, making money off of the most despicable things, creating so much crime, so much death. And, Julio Cordero, with his Poison Pawns investigation, he was the most decorated FBI agent in El Paso history, a real good guy, and had over 40 of these really narco corrupt officials arrested. But when he heard, and this is the information that we received, when he heard that Richard was designated on April 24th, 2024 as deceased, he knew that this was absolutely a murder by this same group, right? He went after, because it is just the same group that's causing all the trouble in El Paso. And Michael P. Gonzalez is part of it with Amber Chase. We hear he's close to Amber Chase, and he was there at the scene when Julio Cordero, without any weapon, right, was killed by Sniper Wolf, and we can't make that up. Anthony Acuñas goes by Sniper Wolf. He is the El Paso ISD police officer that uh, fatally in the head killed Julio Cordero, who was not armed. Okay, he was not armed. And this was in the morning, and you can see in that picture where his body lay. You could see the situation there, and the accounting of uh, the witness statements don't add up, y'all. They just don't add up. They don't it's like impossible. It's kind of like the Charlie Kirk case. Nothing adds up. And of course, like Richard's case at the beginning, when they were just telling us nonsense stuff, it never added up. So I think I'm very, very appreciative of all of this discussion around the Charlie Kirk case, especially when they compared it to, hey, maybe this group is part of mass shootings, right? Maybe this is the same group that causes mass shootings. When Candace Owens said that, I was like, now you know, because this is a group that Richard knew was tied to the mass shooting of the Walmart August 3rd, 2019 mass shooting. And in El Paso, to what? To target President Trump. To what? To affect politics, to stop him from being elected, to blame President Trump about the whole thing and stop him from being elected. So this is the same group, and I can tell you that Amber Chase was on this for a long time. She was on this trying to stop us until we found out really who she was and started uh, putting two and two together and putting the official complaints in, and um, and then also the phone numbers. We we were able to trace the burner phone numbers. And so burner phones can be traced. I just want to let everyone know that burner phones can be traced. And that is for another discussion. And when we finally traced the burner phones where they were calling us and really harassing us so much, all hours of day, um, with the most vile and vulgar, to try to threaten us and harass us to stop so that Richard could go into cold case and they could get away with all of the very, very evil things that they do, from fraud, from death fraud, uh, from taking someone's life, from um, ass shootings to all of the trafficking and everything. I mean, this group is just really, really, they're very nasty. They are very, very nasty. So I think it's very important for everyone to share this information for everybody's safety, especially for an El Paso. These people absolutely need to be, well, we've investigated, we've turned in the criminal complaints. They need to further investigate them and they need to arrest them. Lalani Hart, she's a confirmed convicted criminal. She needs to be arrested. Dallas Hart, he is a prime suspect in our son's murder case. He needs to be arrested. James Hart, he needs to be arrested. And, of course, Michael P. Gonzalez. And, they all need to be investigated. And I think the highest the highest penalty given to them because what they've done is an act of war against the United States. uh, it is a betrayal that we cannot put up with because it'll ruin us. It will absolutely ruin our country. And it has allowed so many people to get hurt, so much trafficking, and to allow that border to be open for fentanyl and cocaine and all the children, 500,000 children being trafficked, and then all of the weapons trafficking, the ammunition trafficking, and everything. So nothing adds up in the Julio Cordero narrative, except for the real evidence, which means he knew this is a decorated FBI agent. He had two narco philanthropists still on his list at large. When he heard Richard's case, he apparently started investigating again. He put more dots together from his first Poison Ponds case, called the AUSA up. That was leaked. and he was surveilled, and the next thing we know, he was killed at Franklin High School. So first day of school, I believe. I think it was the first day of school, early in the morning. Um, so if he was wired, if he was surveilled, they would know where he is at all times. At all times. And for Michael P. Gonzalez to be there at the scene, okay, and we'll go into more about that, because why isn't his statement in the open records when he's at the scene? You know, um, there's just a lot of things that don't add up, and we need the body cam footage to clarify that. They won't release the body cam footage. Why not? Why not? We have a lot of footage from Charlie Kirk. Why can't we have the body cam footage for Julio Cordero? Why can't we have the video footage for Richard's case, right? Why can't we have that? And why can't we have the video footage, the complete video footage from the Walmart mass shooting? We would like that also. So, yeah, the video footage would really tell the story. So, for President Trump to absolutely, there's all this video footage for Charlie Kirk, and then also forensics, that preliminary forensics that was released, that was brilliant. And we still don't have the forensics for the Walmart mass shooting. And, why not? Why not? It's a closed case. Where's the forensics report? Because the DPS director, Jose Sanchez, said 3 years after they didn't even have one. They didn't even have a forensics, a ballistics, sorry, a ballistics, I meant ballistics, um, report. And I think that is, yeah, so the ballistics report for Charlie Kirk, I want to clear that up. Um, make sure I'm saying the right thing. The ballistics, the bullets, because we know that there were multiple different types of bullets at the Walmart mass shooting. It was not a lone shooter; it was multiple shooters. So, but it was all politics. It's always all politics. I think I think um, Charlie Kirk was killed because of politics, and I believe that um, our son was killed because of politics with deadly force, and I believe that Julio Cordero was killed because of politics, because politics gives you control over the FBI, the CIA, the DNI, the DHS, the DOJ. It gives you control over the agencies, and that's what they want, because they want to be able to traffic with impunity. And they have protectors, and those protectors are billionaire narco philanthropists. They're not really philanthropists, they have bad intentions. And yeah, that's um, uh, that's our analysis at this time. And um, our our lawsuit's going to be epic. It's going to be just epic. And yeah, thank you so much. Please share with everybody. Thank you so much. God bless you, and I will be back. Oh, I should probably see if I had any comments. There it is. Oh, Laura, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will be back.